for his statement. And I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation. Thank you, Mr. President. The Russian Federation was not in a position to support the proposed by the Russian colleagues draft resolution on extending the United Nations stabilization mission in the Central African Republic. But we abstained not because we disagree with something or do not support the mission. Quite the contrary is true. We accept its activity and the selfless work of the peacekeepers. The reason for that is the manner, the way the work on the text was conducted, especially at its finishing stages. This once again makes us want to think about why the proponents of the draft behaved in this way, because we think that they continue playing a zero-sum game in Africa, unlike us. Furthermore, behind all of this, what we can see is an approach to the African countries as one's own turf and reserve within the vicious circle of metropolis versus colony. In the course of all of the rounds of expert consultations, we asked to consider our concerns and reflect in the text a number of points of principle. And they are aimed, first of all, on increasing transparency in the interaction with the international partners to Bangui. And this is something that the Western delegation constantly called for. And we also called for accepting the important role of regional actors in the Central African settlement process. Unfortunately, yet once again, we encountered the rejection for a mutually respectful work in the Council, and our reasoning in the work on the draft resolution was ignored. Furthermore, the way the draft is put together for us constitutes going by the pen holders of their authorities in order to bring on their national agenda or reflecting the priorities of their closest partners into a Security Council resolution. Basically, there was no search for a compromise. There was no attempt to try to find a consensus. We were proposed the so-called compromise solutions, which did not take into account our legitimate considerations. We were told that this was the maximum the pen holders could accept. But the question we have is this: who determined the upper limit of the maximum? What do you consider to be a maximum? Well, for us, it's not even the minimum. Basically, we were put in front of a fact, and we were told, take it or leave it. You either agree with please agree with the current situation in order to keep the unity of the Security Council. And it's it's not the first time that this is happening in the Council. And this culture of interaction, or rather the lack of such culture, is something that we need to put an end to. The way the draft was agreed, it once again shows that we need to change the existing system of pen holdership of various items on Security Council agenda. This because this has been usurped by the Western three. Mr. President, the authors of the document refused to take into account our concerns of principle having to do with the political area. As a result, we do not see a reflection here of an important point of welcoming peaceful initiatives which are in line with and help the implementation of the African Peace Initiative. Nor did we hear a convincing reasons why the French side spoke categorically against the wording we proposed, which was a very general one, by the way. But we do remember very well that on the 14th of November, upon the appeal of one delegation, which didn't have a consensus, we had a draft resolution which was immediately removed, and we did not see the exact same approach to this resolution by the Paris side. The statement at the meeting in Khartoum, which allowed for the first time in a long time to have the leaders of the opposition groups in CAR, is not in line with the African initiative. This is totally wrong. We have heard similar statements in 2015 when France rejected similar peace efforts by rejecting the Nairobi Agreement between the main opposition groups headed by Bozize and Jotodia, and they said that at the time that this was not in line with earlier agreements. Since then, what we are witnessing is the constant deterioration of the security situation in the CAR, the worsening of the socio-economic situation in the country, and constant human suffering. In this regard, we would like to point out that we took into account the promise of the French delegation to reflect the importance of the Khartoum process in the future Security Council documents, and will monitor its implementation. We, Mr. President, did not see reflected in the text the contribution made by the Russian instructors to training car security, who are there at the invitation of the government and are increasing the battle readiness of the car military. Instead of that, the pen holders highlighted the role played by the EUTM, and the EUTM, according to the Europeans themselves, is focused on training the military in human rights, which is not exactly something that can help them ensure safety and control over the whole territory of the country. Mr. President, we think that's very illustrative to take a look at the story of the approval by the 2127 Committee of sending to Kar of Russian ammunition, which is free of charge and in line with the request from Bangui. It seems that there is a consensus in order to strengthen the national security sector, and we've answered all the questions. But we're being told now that a Kar doesn't have proper warehousing facilities. But on the other hand, the later supply of 1,400 automatic rifles by the French, not from their warehouses, but the ones seized from smugglers, warehousing was found. Where is the logic here? Or is this a double standard again? So once again, using their own narrow interests, Western countries are preventing creating a battle-ready military in the Kar and restoring the legitimate authority throughout the country, despite everything that's been said to the contrary. Mr. President, I will have to sadden those who yet once again are trying to accuse Russia of all the evils in the world. By the way, we today, with a great deal of surprise, heard from BBC, and you can look it up yourself on the internet, there was a statement made by the National Security Council, John Bolton, about the role played by Russia and China in Africa. And the claims and concerns that he has against our countries are the same claims that can be put to the United States, and that's exactly what the correspondent describing the situation is saying, and you can look that up. The unity of the international community in stabilizing the Kar has not disappeared. There is also the understanding of the importance to extend the peacekeeping mandate. But what is unacceptable to us is when using the pretext of consolidating this support, what the authors of the draft are doing is saying that their efforts are exclusive of nature. We expect that in the end, reason will prevail for the interest of the people of the Kar. We will continue active, peaceful efforts aimed at stabilizing the situation and ensuring that there is fully fledged, peaceful life in the country, and we're ready for respectful interaction for everyone who is of constructive cooperation. There is area for cooperate on Kar for everyone. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his